Listen up, C6 owners, here are 10 things I really think you should know or at least be aware of if you have a 6th generation Corvette parked in your garage.
Toys for life.
It's summer and it's hot outside, so let's start with a couple of things related to your C6's cooling system. If it seems as though your engine is running hot based upon the temperature you see on the gauge in your dash, take a deep breath. It might be normal. When you're moving slow or you're stuck in stop and go traffic,
give her a little rev under this bridge. Go for it.
there's not much airflow going through your radiator, and your coolant temperature will continue to rise until your fans kick in. Looking inside your C6's tune with the help of HP tuners, here's the table that controls your fan speed. As you can see by the table, the fans won't even flinch until the coolant temperature's 199 degrees. Rather than the fan either being off or on like in the old days, in the C6 the computer varies the power to the fan, allowing it to vary between 0 all the way up to around 90%. Looking at the table a bit closer, the fans don't even get 50% power until the coolant's at 215 degrees, and they don't even get 90% fan power until the coolant's at a whopping 225 degrees. So on warm summer days, if your C6 Corvette is routinely seeing coolant temperatures of 220, 225 degrees or a little bit more, that's not unusual. That having been said, the first C6 Corvette is now 20 years old, and there's definitely some maintenance items that you can take care of to make sure your cooling system is functioning as it should. There are even a couple of modifications that you can do or have done that lower your C6's average coolant temperature, and that will actually free up a little bit of horsepower in certain situations. And if that interests you, go ahead and take a look at this video right up here. Item number 2, and this is also cooling system related, and this is something you should have checked even if you're not having any cooling system issues. Anytime your C6 is in for service and it's up on a lift, there is a known problem with the plug that connects the fan assembly to the main wiring harness, and the problem is it likes to melt. The good news, it's super easy to check, so whenever it's up on a lift at a shop, ask them to take a look at the plug up front. Here's some footage of a plug that looks completely normal, and here's a picture of a plug that's obviously melted and needs to be replaced ASAP. Item number 3, you left your interior light on in your C6 or whatnot, and or for some reason your battery is dead. How do you get inside so that you can open up the hood and charge your battery? The fancy little pads on the doors are electrical, so they won't work. And so here's the workaround. At the back of the C6, there is a key lock that you're able to insert your key and mechanically open the rear hatch. Then look on the driver's side of the interior hatch area for this little cable tag and give it a tug. And this will open the driver's door mechanically, just like the good old days. Then of course, simply hop in, pop the hood, and connect your charger. Oh, and by the way, if your battery is really dead, it can take up to 6 hours or so with your typical 10 amp battery charger to fully charge the battery. And by the way, number 2, I would get a new battery charger, but this one refuses to die. Item number 4, what if in that last scenario you hopped in the C6 so that you could pop the hood and charge the battery, and somehow the driver's door closes? I know it's not very probable that that would happen, so here's a more probable situation. You're driving your C6 when out of the blue someone hits you and you get in an accident. And because of the damage from the accident, you lose all vehicle power. If that were to happen, how do you open the driver's door to get out, as the normal button you push is electrical as well? You can use one of these, it's quite effective, or you can simply reach down and pull up on this little lever, which once again is a redundant mechanical way of opening the door. This must be the way that Boeing got the idea to build redundancy into its passenger aircraft. Item number 5, speaking of losing your power or some sort of an electrical glitch, sometimes your windows will lose their ability to index, which means they no longer correctly do this. Or this. I've owned the C6 for 2 years now, and this does happen from time to time, but it's infrequent enough that I forget exactly how to re-index them. So here's a refresher. To re-index your windows, get inside your C6 and shut the door, and then hit the start button, but do not start the car. Raise the window and continue to hold the switch for 3 seconds once it's all the way up.
1001, 1002, 1003.
Release the switch and then hold the switch up one more time for 3 more seconds and you're done. And for the passenger side window, it is exactly the same process. Speaking of dead batteries, what happens if the battery inside your fob goes bad? Well, this happens every 5 years or so, so here's a few good tips to remember for when that day comes. First, if the battery inside your fob is dead, you'll likely not be able to get inside the C6 using your door keypads because they're electrical, so you'll probably have to use the key once again, just like I showed you a few minutes ago, and get in the C6 from the rear. Once inside the car, if you try to start it and there's a message inside your dash that says something like "No fobs detected," take the fob out of your pocket and set it on the passenger seat. Give that a try. Set it up on the dash and give that a try. If neither one of those locations work, try unplugging anything that's plugged into a charging port on your C6, like a radar detector or a cell phone or anything else for that matter that could be causing interference between the fob and the receiver in your C6. If that doesn't work, go ahead and open up your glove box, and there's actually a little slot that you insert the fob into with the buttons facing the passenger side. This should detect the fob even if the fob's battery is dead, so go ahead and give that a try. If you're really having a bad day and even that doesn't work, go ahead and open up your hood and break out the multimeter and check the battery voltage. It should be around 12.5 volts if it's fully charged. If it's much less than that, go ahead and put a battery charger on it and get it up to 12.5 volts and try again. Number 7, your C6 Corvette is equipped with traction control and active handling, which are 2 separate systems designed to keep you out of trouble if conditions are slippery, if you're at the racetrack, or if you're just screwing around somewhere in Mexico. Every time you start your C6, both active handling and traction control are fully on, and from there you have 3 other choices you can possibly make depending on your skill level, what you're doing with the car, and your risk tolerance. Explaining each one of these 4 modes in detail is beyond the scope of this video, but if you're interested in knowing more about these modes, and you should be, go ahead and check this video out right up here after you're done watching this one. Number 8, your C6 Corvette is much more complex than any Corvette that came before it, and if you're the type of owner that likes to do some of your own repairs that are going to come up from time to time, you're going to need a scan tool. C5 Corvettes actually came with a fairly decent self-diagnostic system, allowing you to see diagnostic trouble codes from several different modules. But for some reason, GM continued not to include the same functionality in our C6s, so you're going to need some sort of a scan tool to see any diagnostic trouble code whatsoever. This is not a super big deal, as you can get a basic scan tool that will read most, if not all, of the engine's diagnostic trouble codes and even graph some of the engine's parameters for around $30 or less. That having been said, our C6s are fairly complicated machines, and they have a whole bunch of different modules, somewhere around 15 of them, that control things like the anti-lock brakes, the HVAC systems, and the transmission, and several other systems, all of which are able to set their own diagnostic trouble codes that help you to be able to diagnose and fix your Corvette. If you plan to keep your C6 for a while and you intend to do as many of your own repairs as possible, you're going to need a scan tool that can communicate with all of the different modules. Here are a few of my favorites that are fairly easy to use, that have bi-directional capabilities, that talk to most, if not all, of the modules to get the diagnostic trouble codes, and they'll likely pay for themselves the very first time you use them. Number 9, C6 Corvettes tend to have a reputation of suffering from either weak or dead batteries. Many people believe this has to do with excess parasitic power drain, but I just tested my parasitic draw on my C6 and it's less than 20 milliamps, which isn't bad. For most people that suffer from these issues with their C6, I think it mainly happens for 3 reasons. 1, infrequent trips. 2, very short trips, and 3, a lot of sitting in between. Think about it for a second. If your Corvette sits Monday through Friday as you take your commuter car to work, and then on Saturday you take the Corvette for a short trip, it may not be enough to fully top off your battery. If the same thing plays out often enough, each slight cumulative battery drain adds up, and pretty soon your C6 won't even start. If this is you, the solution is to be cognizant of how often your C6 is actually getting used, and if it's sitting more than it's driving, simply connect a battery tender junior to it once in a while, and your low battery issues will be a thing of the past. The 10th item on this list is when, not if, your check engine or any other light for that matter comes on. How do you know if it's something you need to stop and shut the engine off for immediately, or if you can continue on to your destination and get it looked at when it's convenient? Most check engine lights are not super urgent, but there are a few situations that demand immediate attention. The first one is if the check engine light is flashing, it is made to get your attention. It means you have some misfiring going on, and raw fuel is getting into your catalytic converters, which can damage them rather quickly. So if your check engine light is flashing, pull over and shut the engine off. Anytime you get a light that comes on your dash, make it a habit to take a look at your coolant temperature, your oil pressure, and your battery voltage. Sometimes you'll even get a light that says, check engine gauges. Anytime you've got little or no oil pressure, pull over and shut your engine off immediately, because running an engine in this situation can damage multiple internal components quickly, and that's very expensive. If your coolant temperature is at or above 240 degrees, I would strongly suggest pulling over, shutting off the air conditioning, letting it idle for a short bit, and if you don't see the coolant temperature start to drop quickly, go ahead and shut the engine off. Running an LS engine much above 240 degrees can quickly warp the cylinder heads, damage the head gaskets, and cause all sorts of other issues, all of which are expensive to repair. If your voltage drops to much below 12.5 volts for a sustained period of time, that means there's likely something going on with your charging system. You can continue on with that battery voltage being low, but it is possible that ultimately you'll end up stranded. That's going to do it for this one, guys. If you own a C6 Corvette and there's something important that I missed, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. If you learned anything from the video, tap that thumbs up. And most of all, thanks for watching.